Hello, trendsetters. Welcome to Tarot Down Under. Dr. Lena Rodriguez coming to you with another instalment in the craziness and horror that is the administration of the Yeti. Apologies to Yetis. So I thought I'd use the circus deck today because so much of what he does is circus-like, you know. And when the news came out that he was taking hydroxychloroquine, my immediate reaction, I have to say, intrepid viewers, was, no, he's not. I bet he isn't. But who knows? We'd best have a look. We'll be looking at the debacle and the circus of what is the Michael Flynn case and other things. So, meanwhile, what's been happening, there's 40,000 in the National Guard who have been doing a great job. They've been opening field hospitals, working in them, testing, doing all this valuable stuff. So it could have been Trump himself or someone else in the GOP who decided to cut off their duty at 89 days because at 90 days they'd actually get some sort of reward in terms of conditions for healthcare or for student loans or something. So they're cutting them off at 89 days. This denial of what's going on, apart from that being a mean-spirited dog act, where do they get off, you know? Anyway, first off the rank, is he or isn't he taking the hydroxychloroquine? Is he or isn't he taking it? Is he taking it? Have a look. See how the circus cards perform. All right, let me bring you down here. The world, the sun, and the Four of Swords. Well, look, here he is. This actually looks like his father, Fred Trump. They could have superimposed his face. Look at this. Sodas, popcorn, and peanuts. You know, in the Trump tradition, selling a story, selling a thing. The hermit, the sad clown behind closed doors. Well, that about sums him up too, doesn't it, really? So it's also an element of secrecy about what's actually going on here. Oh, I just had a thought. I'll come to that in a minute. But this is what he's doing behind closed doors. Meanwhile, in the rest of the world, they've found out hydroxychloroquine, although it has an active ingredient that can be useful, very carefully monitored, when you take it without having the a lupus or something like that, it can be damaging, and more tests are coming out to show that. So that's what the world thinks. He's not listening to the world because he's in hermit mode. Then he gets the sun. I'm invincible, I'm like a tiger, look at me, jumping through the flaming hoops. This would suggest to me maybe he is taking it and he's running a risk with the Ring of Fire. But this card has me puzzled. Four of Swords, retreat. I suspect, this is a bit trickier than I thought. I suspect he said to the doctor, I want to take it, and you do it. You know, this is me. I'm wondering if the doctor hasn't told him he's taking it, but isn't actually giving it to him. Oh, that's weird. Because I just heard when I was dealing these cards, don't be fooled. And I don't think it's as simple as he's saying he's taking it and he's not taking it. I think he thinks he is taking it. And here we go with the anvil on the stomach. So I'm thinking normally you look at the Yeti and you see a heart attack in the making and all of that. But given that he has the palate of a 6-year-old child, like this preoccupation with eating burgers every day and all of that stuff, I'm wondering if he's not going to have some stomach complaints. Do we care? Not a lot. Okay, so I'm going to put those back. What else did I want to talk to you about? Thank you for your barter stories. They were wonderful. More barter. We all need more barter. And also, in this time of stress and madness, please take some time out from the news. Actually, a news-free day once or twice a week or something. The news will all be there the next day because basically the news consists of a body count now, doesn't it, really? There is no news in the world, it would appear. So make sure you take some time out from the news. At the same time, stay engaged. You can always catch up with it, but not subject yourself to it every day. You know. So stay in touch. Like-minded people are very important because I think it's also important to avoid stories that are obviously supporting the other side. They're just going to drive you crazy. So really look after yourselves, intrepid ones. Okay, I'm now going to look at the Flynn case. So Flynn admits to lying twice. He gets smacked for his treacherous behaviour. Judge Sullivan is now being challenged by others. So where is this going? Judge Sullivan, I think, has handed over an aspect of the case to yet another judge, but there's a lot of pressure being brought to bear on Sullivan in this. So where is the Flynn case going? Where is the Flynn case going? Where is the Flynn case going? Seven of Pentacles being evaluated. Yeah, sevens, more sevens, and the Justice card. All right. Who's doing the thinking and evaluating? Has he done enough? It could be Flynn himself. Have I done enough with this new team to get out of this mess? Or it could be Judge Sullivan. Have I done enough to stand up for the country over this? It could equally apply to both of them, but there's an assessment going on, you could say, literally both sides of the Pentacle coin. Have we done enough? Behind this is the Tower, and it's not just Flynn's tower, this is an American tower. If they get away with this, that's really a slippery slope to the Banana Republic, which Magilla Gorilla, the esteemed president, would probably like because he probably likes bananas. They're probably the only fruit he's ever eaten. But it has serious implications. Like, one of the pillars of a working democracy is having an independent judiciary, also an independent media, but that's another story. Independent judiciary. So this is really important. Reinforcing that, this is the card of justice underneath Flynn's reading. At the moment, Flynn, tying himself in knots, is okay. He's personally, if you're just looking at it through Flynn's eyes, he's better off than he was because he's not, if this very bent arrangement gets pulled off, he'll get away with it and have a reason to celebrate. But I don't think he's going to get away with it because the Seven of Wands, this is him still defending. So that could be, what do they call it? I think Judge Sullivan could do some sort of judgment that's called with prejudice as opposed to without prejudice. In other words, it could come back again with Flynn, even if he pulls this off. I don't think this is the end of the story for Flynn under a new administration. So it's a very important story, one we have to watch, see what happens with Sullivan, who's under this enormous pressure, like I said. Now, also, Biden must be getting closer to getting a VP, and lots of names are in the ring. You know, Susan Rice has been mentioned, Elizabeth Warren, Stacey Abrams would be a good choice. Tammy Duckworth is another one, but I'm going to have a quick look at Amy Klobuchar because apparently the Biden camp is talking to her referees or however they do it next. So she's obviously made the short list. So let's have a look at Amy Klobuchar. Amy Klobuchar for VP. The general thinking was he should go for a minority woman, but who knows? You could do worse, I suppose, than Amy Klobuchar, although, as we've said here before on this channel, viewers, there's a weird side behind closed doors to Amy Klobuchar. Let's have a look. Amy Klobuchar and VP. Klobuchar. All right. The death card could be the end, could be the beginning. Oh dear. No, as long as it could be struck. Not marvellous cards for Amy, you have to say. Dear me, I was expecting more than that. These are quite difficult cards. Okay, on top, the death card. But, as we know, it's not about literal death. The end of something huge and the beginning of something huge. So it could be the end of her life as a whatever she is, as a paid lawmaker and into the VP position. So in and of itself, that's not conclusive either way as far as I'm concerned. What I'd be more concerned about is swords in the back. I don't think Amy's that popular with people who have worked for her and with her. She could bring more problems than is obvious. A compromise could be made. A deal could be struck. Here's the lover's card. Contracts, treaties, pacts, agreements. An agreement could be made with this compromise. But a lot of work, so 2 10s and the death card at the end of things. I'm not seeing it for Amy, I have to say. That might bring joy to some of you. I don't particularly have an opinion, but looking at these cards, she wouldn't be my first pick if I had to put money on it. Oh my word. Okay, so there was a big protest during the week online, guys, by the RISE organisation. People in poverty rise up. If anyone heard, I didn't see anything because the media doesn't cover protests. They should have covered the truck protest against Trump. And all we had was horns in the background and him saying, they love me. The media is really falling down on covering protests, you know. So if anyone knows what happened to that, it was by the organisation RISE. Okay, now, will the next stimulus pass? Will the next stimulus bill pass? Nothing's guaranteed in this world, is it? was just poor shuffling. I'll put that back. Ace of Wands. Will the next stimulus package pass? It's got to get through those ghastly people in the Senate. Will the next stimulus package pass? Queen of Wands, could be Pelosi, bit of heartbreak, bit of hard work. Oh, the Ace of Wands came back. Okay, I think this is Pelosi in this context. Right. All right. Now, the Dems are frustrated and feel betrayed by the whole democratic process. I don't think it's the GOP losing sleep over ideas of betrayal, because they're still busy doing the betraying. So you'd have to think that's the Dems struggling with this. Again, hard work, really hard work. They don't want to part with the money. The GOP doesn't want to part with the money. They only like giving huge amounts of money to singularly undeserving people and corporations. They're not interested in the little people, so they want to hold on to it and I guess save it for someone really rich they can give it to. The Page of Cups is interesting here in the outcome. So this could be about young people who are waiting, certainly waiting for their offering. This is a message, but they're waiting and they're waiting and they're waiting. I think the Ace of Wands could be, dare I suggest, young people coming to the front and actually demanding something from their government. We haven't seen that yet with all this connectivity and the fact we can all talk to each other all around the world. You have the odd one like Greta Thunberg who suddenly becomes global. You had the wonderful Emma Gonzalez and David Hogg in the aftermath of the Florida shooting. I'd like to see some global young people really put up a fight. This one, Ace of Wands, it's a new fight, and it's a new fight for what's right. Interesting. So we might hear from young people directly. That would be good and not a minute too soon, if you ask me. Now, the other question I wanted to ask was, where is healthcare in all this? The Dems should be going on the bandwagon about, he said he'd give you big, beautiful healthcare. Where is it? You know, these guys who arm themselves and go and protest, give me liberty or give me death, why don't they fight, put all that energy into getting decent healthcare for their families if they're so worried? Wouldn't that make a change? Protests about healthcare instead of something else. But where is the healthcare debate sitting? It's sort of in a strange position here, I think. It's front and foremost because we're all in the middle of a pandemic, but on the other hand, it's sort of slipping down the ballot or something. Have you seen those wonderful polls, including Fox polls, that put Biden 11 points ahead of the Yeti? And that's because older people have started actually listening and don't want to be told they're disposable. Quelle surprise. Now, let's look at the healthcare question. The profile, I think I'll call it the profile of healthcare. Profile of healthcare for this election. The profile. People are still thinking about it. That's something. I think there'll be a last minute deal. So if you're going to be happy and fulfilled, you have to be secure in the knowledge you can actually go to a hospital and be treated. It is still a strong issue for people, but most people are burnt out, worn out, and disappointed by the lack of progress and feel they're being stabbed in the back yet again. Well, not surprising. Things are only going to change when the majority demand that change. But here is the Two of Cups, and I think a last minute deal could be struck, maybe between Biden and Bernie, in a sense, finding some palatable way to take it to the polls in a way that's not too threatening, because you already got the worst health system in the Western world, in the first world. It's already rotten to the core and costs a fortune. So although it has to be dealt with quickly, I don't think it's smart. It's not Biden's bag to run with the universal health care thing, but he might find a buzz phrase that implies over the next few years, if I'm president, we could work towards something that resembled universal health care. I think this card is the most important. Okay, so that's right. So now, before we go, I want to have a quick look at Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan. She keeps getting abused by the Yeti. She seems to be coping with it well. He has threatened to withdraw funding from Michigan, as well as the stuff about the absentee votes. I hope most people in Michigan are tribal enough to go, how dare he do that? I really hope it has that effect and that he loses Michigan by the widest possible margin that one can count. I really hope. So let's have a look. Governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer. How's she travelling? I think they've got a female Attorney General there too. Gretchen Whitmer, how's she going? Oh, she's all right. She's very, very sensible. I like what I see here about her personal energy. So in the centre, Page of Pentacles, this is a message about money, but also about security, how to make people secure. So it's a trade-off between the conventional measure of security, which is money and income, and because we're dealing in the time of a pandemic, it's also ruled by Earth. It's the body. It's finding the balance between going out and earning money and putting yourself at personal risk, or slowing down the opening. And I think she's wrestling with this issue, the red turban, she's wrestling with it, but she's very, very sensible. I think in the past, she was more of a firebrand than she is now. I think she's actually learnt to listen in this job. I think this was her as a young, ambitious thing, fighting the good fight and getting to where she got. Then she realised, she got to a crossroads. If I go down this path too much, I am going to bring the wrath of, this is Magilla Gorilla, who seems to be today's name for the Yeti, the King of Pentacles, greedy one. So the smart thing to do is to keep thinking, keep talking, keep your people on side, keep communicating with the people of Michigan. So in other words, she's toned it down. She's chosen a path to change how she talks about it. And I think it's paying off. Here we have the cautious knight. going forward with caution, the horse being reined in. And I think that's the smartest possible approach. So I think Gretchen will be fine. And I'm hoping that means more of Michigan will actually fall in behind her than would have a month ago. In other words, I think she's gaining respect, not losing it. I hope I'm right about that. I really do. Do you like my red tiki? They're very unusual, the red ones. Gorgeous. Yeah. Now, I just wanted to say, in terms of staying sane, you really need to take staying sane and productive very seriously, because there's so much assaulting us all on a daily basis. So my tips include, as I just mentioned before, the news moratorium, but also really, really important, we all get inundated with these stupid conspiracy theories and these belligerent people who want to think, oh, there's so many of them. No, they've just got the loudest voices. So it's triple-decker important to take a few minutes each day to visualize the most positive outcome you can about this. How do you want your country to look on the other side of all this? Because if you can be positive and keep your positive energy up, other people are drawn to it. Just as people are drawn to misery, they're equally drawn to a positive way of seeing how this could resolve in better healthcare, in better labour conditions, all these things that aren't going to happen straight away, but need to happen in the next 4 or 5 years. So depending on your age and stage, I think it's really important to support young people in their fight for what's right. That could be pushing for the waiving of student loans for the next 5 years. Pick a cause you're passionate about and make some small contribution towards it. So you can go, you can check your voter registration, go to vote.org, help someone else do it. Is there someone else in your family that needs help making sure their registration's current? Because don't forget, you're going to get all these GOP nutters trying to cut anyone off that they can. So can you help getting people registered or checking the status of their registration? What can you do to help? So better to be part of the solution than part of the problem. And part of the solution is looking at this as we cannot continue as we were, not just America, the world. We cannot let the rest of the Amazon be burnt down. We cannot ignore this stuff. We can't have young people doing worse than their grandparents at work. It's not right and should not be tolerated. So we've got a lot of visualization to do that's positive, encouraging people to believe in their own power again. It's easy to feel really powerless in these situations, but you're not. So vote, 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 vote. All right, blessings from Australia. I'll see you soon. Keep the comments flowing. Bye, bye, bye for now. Ciao.